One of the key things for entrepreneurs is to retain flexibility and adaptability. So maybe Steven, starting with you, give us some reflections on how you have personally, but also adapted your business over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think so much has changed in business, and I have quite a unique perspective because I have the companies that I'm running as basically CEO, and then I have companies that I sit on the board for, like Huel's of the world, and then I have a lot of investments that I've made. So I'm seeing patterns and different issues in all of these businesses, but over the last couple of years, I've never seen such a macro environment and how it's completely torn what were really thriving businesses apart. And all of these companies are having the same kind of crisis meetings about the same topics, supply chains and wars and the inflation rates and the cost of living crises, and how this impacts everything from how much they're paying for protein, because there's been a 30% protein inflation, to how their employees are surviving and thriving when they can't heat their homes very easily. All of these issues all at once. And it's a really interesting time, because when there is macro change, when there's change in any landscape in your business, it all comes down to, for me, it comes down to mindset and philosophy. And then also having the right tools in place to either lean into the change or lean out of the change because you're intimidated. And that's what I'm thinking a lot about in all of our companies, is like addressing it. Same thing with relationships, having the honest conversations as soon as you possibly can, making those changes to your business as soon as you possibly can. This weird sort of paradox of being a pessimist, planning for the worst, while also having to be an optimist, which is we're going to get through this. So, yeah.
Love it. And Kat, you're a sole founder, and Steven talks about so much of this is around mindset. Mind you, your business is yoga, which really helps with mindset. But again, talk us through, how do you stay adaptable and how do you keep yourself motivated as a sole founder?
I love the fact, that you use the word sole founder, because I think that's what we forget. Like, yeah, okay, cool, we're like small businesses, SMEs, but we're also people. We're shopping. We don't go to some magical special Tesco's where we're on old prices. We're living this crisis out all together. And I think that's the most important thing, is like we're human beings doing it together. So treat your business like in a human perspective. Don't forget that. You're not separate. We're not others. I think then when you remember that, and you remember that your consumer is your business, yeah, okay, cool, you sit there with like an idea and a fancy name and a fancy title. You don't have a business without other people, without your consumer. So start to ask them questions. Like, don't be afraid to be like, I remember when I started Yogi Bear, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to be super shiny and bright and pretend that I'm bigger than I am to win deals. Like, the minute I started being real and honest and being like, it's just me, but isn't that cool, because it's like agile. And then as we grew our small team, it's like, but isn't that so cool? We've got like no chain of sign off. We can do whatever we want and work flexibly with you. Be honest and be real about who you are and where you're at, and ask people. But also don't forget, so for example, with Yogi Bear, we're not just D2C. We work with a lot of studios. We work with a lot of hotels, supplying mats to them. Nurture them now when they're going through the biggest crises of their life, like studios were closed for 2 years in the pandemic. Ask them how you can support them now, and they won't forget you when everything turns around. And sometimes that's maybe not making the sensible business choice. Maybe that's like, do you know what, I'm going to do a couple of favors, a couple of freebies, or something extraordinary for you, because I see you, I believe in you, and we're going to get out the other side of this together.
But Andrew, to you, because as Kat says, this is kind of a really important time to listen to customers, and talk us through, because these companies, and Steven has run big businesses, Kat is running an ever-growing business, but of course Vodafone is huge, it's global. How do you kind of take a customer-centric approach when people are facing these kind of issues?
We've put into place a number of different things with a focus on trying to understand what are the key topics, particularly from a digital standpoint, where small businesses need help. So, we've put in place VHub, which is a platform which just tries to understand what are the key topics which, as you start to face into this crisis, small businesses need a bit of help with. And then once you understand that and have a little bit of help on that, and we provide free one-to-one support and guidance on that, then it's about the training. And Emma, you and I work together on this. We provide what we call Business Connected platform, which is you identify digital marketing as a gap and something you want training on. So we will help you with some training, with some support, with some webinar, with some peer-to-peer support, with some material and with some ongoing coaching. And actually the outputs of that have been fantastic for us. It's really educated us, it's really helped us to understand how we communicate, because we do tend to communicate like a corporate, and actually trying to break through some of the complexity of language, I think, has been, a massive learning for us.
Lovely. And Steven, we've kind of covered the challenges, which everyone knows that there are, but I want to talk to you about growth. So you advise lots of companies. Your podcast, CEO Diary, has just hit over 10 million downloads per month, which is phenomenal. I know, phenomenal. So when you're advising the companies on whose boards you sit, your own business that you've just raised some cash for, which we'll maybe kind of come back to, what are you saying in terms of here are ways in which you can grow? So taking on board what you said about a mindset, how much of that is mindset versus how much of that is pure business tactics?
The first thing to understand is that any of the challenges you're facing in your business today, with any of the decisions you've got to make, no one has ever been faced with solving that problem in September 27th, 2022. No one has ever faced that challenge before. And so this kind of leads to a broader point here about thinking from first principles to create better solutions to any challenge you face in your life, instead of just accepting the conventional answer. The reason why the Diary of a CEO has been successful is because we've taken this kind of radical first principles approach to producing a podcast in 2021, which is really when we started it. Which means that whenever we're faced with the challenge of how do you promote a podcast, how do you get guests for the podcast, how do you do YouTube, how do you record the audio, how do you create a setting that is going to get people to be open and honest, we think from first principles. So when Israel Adesanya comes, we've researched what music makes him cry. So he walks in the door and Double Up by Nipsey Hussle's playing. We have this obsessive focus on first principle thinking to create new solutions because we know all of the challenges we face. No one's ever solved them. And if we are going to win in any of our companies, it's going to be because of the thing people called innovation, which is being presented with a challenge in your relationships, with your partner, whatever it might be. And instead of just saying, okay, I accept that, we're going to get married, we're going to get a dog, we're going to settle down, going, if the North Star is happiness, starting with the North Star, if that's the North Star, let's reason from there up what we know to be true. 99% of the decisions we make in our business, we accept convention. And then we get saturated, substandard results, and then we have to deal with that. In all of my companies, I've had this obsessive focus on what is the smallest thing? What is the smallest thing that I can focus on, and how do I create a new solution to solving that problem? And you have that, if you have that your team has that as a philosophy, you're tilting the trajectory of your growth. I don't think in terms of big things. It's like, the example I gave this morning to somebody was like, if you don't brush your teeth today, fine, nothing happens. Don't brush your teeth every day this week, fine. Try that for 5 years. The invisible compounding force will mean that you're on a dental chair having your teeth ripped out when did it happen? It happened when you didn't think about those small, tiny things. So this 1% philosophy and then doing the impossible task of reasoning up from what you know to be true to create a new solution. And in a changing world, it's never been more important for you to think for yourself about your teams, how they work, how you do your business, the tools you use. Throw out the rule book. If you want to win now, you have to throw out that old, very now expired rule book because the world has changed and start to really think about all of these key things from what you know to be true, and you'll create something new.
Can I ask you, do you ever operate at suboptimal?
Yeah, of course, every day.
And on seriousness, because I've heard a lot of your philosophy. Your incredible business success, undeniable. When you're at suboptimal, what do you do? What happens?
Sleep. What do I do to fix it?
What do you do to fix it?
Is the big thing. This has been the big level change in my life. Caring about my sleep has just been.
I love that. I thought you were going to say something way more profound. Now, Kat would say yoga is the foundation.
That is as well.
So, your business, again, grew by 900% during COVID, which is just incredible. You're exporting all around the world. You've done a deal with Liverpool Football Club, which I hear will really make Steven happy.
Sorry. The Liverpool Football Club thing came after a cheeky email. Mo Salah did a selfie on a Yogi Bear mat. Didn't know he had one, sent a cheeky email, but it was like they didn't understand initially why yoga, why football, they don't make sense. But if you picture as we're keeping people doing what they love for longer, like if you have mobility, you are going to be able to have a kickabout with your grandkids. You're going to be able to bond with your mates on your Sunday Fiver League club. And it's just like, how do you see the different ins? And once you start to expand your mind beyond, yeah, okay, cool, I'm a yoga brand, But in my head, I'm a punk rock skater, football, like surf brand. I didn't ever want to start a yoga brand. In my head, I'm like too punk for that, but I'm not at all. But I think it's like, how do you expand your mind beyond the lane that the world and society is trying to stay in your lane, that's your lane. But what if there's a cooler lane over there, or a lane that you run easier in? Like, I just think that don't limit yourself, but also mess around with your own stuff, and you might see it in a different way and solve a problem that was right there in front of you, but because you didn't get your product out and take it to bits, or like mess around on it, you'll see new challenges, and you'll find new audiences, and you'll find new places to sell, which is a gross word, but you'll find new people for you if you look at it in a different way and keep playing.
Steven Bartlett, again, you have done chapters of your life that most people wouldn't have done between the age of 75, and you've done them before the age of 30. So talk us through what you feel the environment is in the UK, and how you feel is it straightforward or is it not to raise funds at the moment?
It's definitely a lot more difficult to raise money at the moment. Cash is king right now. So raising investment now is not easy. However, as is always the case, for good businesses, for good entrepreneurs, it's very, very possible. And one of the things you said kind of made me think about Pulse Connect a bit, which was we're always trying to think in our teams about like adaptability and flexibility, and about anything we can do to save £1, 1 minute, to get one more view, to a really extremely obsessive level. It sounds unpleasant, but I promise you it's fun. And when I heard about Pulse Connect, it was a light bulb moment for me, because I realized that currently I have all of these contracts, they're all scattered, they're really, really inefficient. And by bringing them together in one package for my business, like my Wi-Fi and all of those things, the efficiencies I could make, if it's 1%, I want it. There's very few things we can control in life. Like, it's going to go back to a broader point, and especially in our businesses, especially when there's macro chaos, the default to focusing on what you can control is really great for your mental health. Yeah. It's really, but that's all you control. There's inputs and outputs. The outputs just happen as a result of the inputs. Knowing what our KPIs, our key inputs are, the things we can make more efficient, or save 5 minutes on, or save £5 on, or get 5 more views on, that's it. That gives me a real sense of feeling empowered and feeling in control. Obsessing about the outputs or the vanity metrics, I don't go there. So that's the real thing I want to impress upon people. I think if you can increase the rate of experimentation in your business, fail way more faster than your competition, because you have a team where you're incentivizing failure. Grace and my team on Monday sends me a list of all the experiments we did as a team in the last 7 days. I don't care whether those experiments went well necessarily. That's not the bit that we celebrate. It's having a culture where we're constantly failing and trying things and completing that feedback loop, getting the data. If you're doing that faster than your competition, and even as it relates to funding, that's another challenge. So you think from first principles. Great example. She asked me about funding, so I'll give you a first principle example of that. What do we know about investors? They get loads of emails. What do the emails say? They pretty much sound all the same. So if you were thinking from convention, what you would do, and this applies to if you're trying to get a job as well, you'd find their email on Google, send them an email, pitch deck in there, I'm raising money, give me your money. What you're going to get conventional returns. You would probably have to send hundreds, thousands of those emails to get a return. Think from first principles. Let's use me as an example, because it's the best, I understand my life and how my setup is. If you email me, my assistant Sophie, who stood at the back somewhere, will get the email. She'll then vet whether it's spam or good. Based on that, she'll probably either put it on my list to look at or not. So that's my world and my setup. First principles would say, these people probably have assistants. They probably get lots of emails that sound exactly the same. They're probably spending 1 second scanning each email to decide whether it's spam or whether there's value in it. So knowing those as my first principle truths, I would create the opposite of that. I would go via a letter in the post. Because I know these emails are all copy and paste jobs, I would make it personalized. I know Steven's a Manchester United fan, so I'd put a key ring or something in there from Manchester United, maybe a ticket to the game to come watch it with me.
Yeah, nice.
Right? I'd send it as a gold envelope because that's synonymous with winning. That is a first principled approach to solving a problem, thinking for yourself. And I promise you, you send 20 of those, I've done it in my life, part of the reason I'm here, because I sent loads of gold envelopes. You send 20 of those, or just adopt that first principles approach to every challenge in your business, you will be successful. It will fundamentally change the trajectory of every problem you have to solve in your life. And that's my also other thing, it's that first principles mindset. Hard work. So the results are reserved for those that are willing to do the work.
I love this. You're going to have 50 plus people from tomorrow
You wouldn't
sending
believe
golden
how many
envelopes.
gold envelopes I get
I
a
love
week
it. No,
after
I love
said
it.
that.
I love it. I'd also go on.
It now no longer works. So you have to think of something. Yeah, so you have to think of something else.
Before I open up to the floors, I'd love to know, again, over this period of challenge that we've just had, but growth to come, how are you bringing your teams with you? Because I think this is becoming slightly more difficult, that you're not with people every day. We've all been used, well, I'm of an age where when you first started work, you went into an office with someone every day. You got to know the culture, you got to know the people. You know, now we're not doing that as easily. What is your advice to other founders, starting with you, Kat, on how do you help your team get through these challenging times?
So we are super remote. I think if you are cultivating a team, it's different now. Like, you're not looking for like one role people. You're looking for all-rounders, sleeves up. And the only way to get those people is they have to love the business as much as you do. They have to get it. They have to get the North Star or your why. And once they resonate with that why, not necessarily from the same reasons, but coming at it from a different angle, gold dust. I don't care about your experience. I don't care what you've done in the past. If like you're that little bit of magic that you can't describe and you resonate with a why, apply for that job. If you resonate with the reason the business started. The other thing is to give everybody, we're all the same. There's no hierarchy in my business. We've just taken on some new young interns as well, and I love it. Oh my God, it's such a moment when they like get in the mix on a phone call and they give their opinion, and you can tell it's their first time like giving their opinion on something, and it was just like, yeah, actually that's a really good point. I wouldn't have seen it from that angle before. The other thing is the love languages. Like, this sounds really like hippy dippy, but I am a yoga brand, so oh well. It's the love languages is like how you like to give and receive love, often used in relationships. But with my team, I know some of them are quiet, but like you look at their to-do list and they've like smashed everything on the to-do list, but they like to receive love in like terms of maybe well done and a genuine compliment. Some people like to have a little gift or a little surprise. Some people just like you to keep their to-do list up to date. And so once you understand your team on that psychological, real people level, you'll get the best out of them every time, because you'll know that, oh, well, they don't compliment that, or they're not like showy or anything. Well, no, but look at their to-do list. That's their way of showing how much they love what they do. So yeah, see people, love people, and remember that your business is built by other people, not by you, just because you're the founder.
Amazing. I love that a yoga founder, though, does say love people. And we will all be it is very on brand. Final words to Steven before we open up.
For me, the closest I've got to kind of encapsulating this is like autonomously, and that's a key word, because when people have a high degree of personal control, no matter what they're doing, their levels of motivation and satisfaction surge. So autonomously working towards a sense of forward motion in your work, that you're getting somewhere, you're progressing towards a meaningful, right? That's a key word as well, because that's subjective. What's meaningful to you is probably different to what's meaningful for me. Is the reward on offer, if you are to be successful, worth it for you? Autonomously working towards a meaningful challenge, another key word, because when something is not a challenge, we become demotivated. When something is so far within your zone of comfort, think about games. If you did the same crossword difficulty every day, you'd get bored of it. Game psychology says we have to continue to have increasing levels of difficulty. If we go too far, it becomes intimidation, and we also lose motivation. So autonomously working towards a meaningful challenge, and the key one, with people you love. In our companies, I'm a big believer in what we can do as like an institution to provide interpersonal connection for people, while also giving them the autonomy and all of those other things I've described. So in our business, we're very close. We get together a lot, several times a week. The autonomy piece means that throughout the week, you decide what you do when you come to work, etc. But we know that connection is central to us being engaged with our mission, loving our working lives, and everything else.
I don't. I'm not going to lie, I don't. And maybe I am, probably because I'm probably your audience. For me, it's more important to take this big step back away from my business and look at it objectively and not get too bogged down in the numbers, because the numbers can be not reflective of the industry. For me, I'm not a numbers person, I'm a words person. And I think that the most important thing you can do is ask questions. Yeah, obviously you have to have an idea and you can see like a dip. Why did we dip this month? Well, actually it's August and people are traveling on holiday. And then, for example, you can flex your business to be like, okay, so people are traveling on holiday. So they probably booked that holiday like a couple of months before. Maybe they like yoga so much that they need to take a yoga mat with them. Well, we do these travel packable yoga mats. So maybe we should be talking about that 8 weeks before August when people are probably booking their holidays. And if you come at it from like a, I am my own consumer approach, rather than like getting so focused on the nitty-gritty of the numbers, I would be your worst nightmare. I'm so sorry. Because I am like literally like the not, but I think it's knowing myself, and also I have people in my team that help with that and really analyze the numbers. But I think it's for me knowing that I work best, not number blindness, but maybe attaching a story to every numbers, and developing the numbers into a character, as it were, who is my consumer, and understanding their psychology. And when I understand their psychology, I can make better business choices, and it helps me understand my stock levels of when I need certain things. And I guess maybe it is looking at the numbers, understanding who's buying at certain times a year and why they're buying. But I definitely don't get too hung up on that, because you want to treat your business like you're ice skating a little bit, and you don't want to ice skate with like, you know, wearing a rucksack full of bricks. That's how I see numbers. Love maths.
Yeah, I'm very much the opposite. So I think today alone, this morning, I think I sent 20 screenshots of analytics to the team, because I'm not a numbers person. I don't like maths. I'm really not good at it either. But for me, you know, there was an interesting word there, which was, she described seeing a behavior pattern in her customer base and then said, maybe they're this, or maybe they're on holiday. For me, I want to turn a maybe into a definitely. And it's a jigsaw piece. I'm not going to have all the pieces. So imagine a jigsaw piece. You'd rather have 10 pieces to the jigsaw to decide what you're looking at than 0 pieces. Because like, as I said about the first principles approach as well, like you're building, you could end up stacking one false assumption because it's a maybe or a guess on top of another one and another one and another one and another. So although I'm not naturally a numbers person, for me, and it goes back to the thing of experimentation, there is no point doing an experiment in your business, or that whole thing about failing fast, if you can't measure it. Yeah. If you don't know exactly what you're measuring, doing an experiment and then not measuring it because you don't look at the data is a waste of time. You don't get a yes or no either way. So a good example that I was talking to my team about on the way here this morning was, we changed the call to action in my YouTube videos on the Diary of a CEO, right? You'll see it in the last episode. At the start of the episode, I say, 71% of you that watch this video regularly don't subscribe. Could you do me a big favor, if you're part of that 71%? Could you, and if you've ever enjoyed the show, please can you hit the subscribe button? It helps this channel more than you know. The bigger the channel, the bigger the guests. Right. Small experiment, because we saw in the back end that 74% of people that watch have never subscribed. Yeah. The subscription rate went up 300%. Yeah. Right? So per view, we're now getting 300% more subscribers. If I had done that 6 months ago, the Diary of a CEO would have 3 million subscribers on YouTube. We have 500,000. Yeah. One small experiment with a clear measurement and a clear way of understanding if the experiment worked is going to mean that at current rate, the Diary of a CEO will have 13 million subscribers in 5 years from today, according to Social Blade. One small experiment, looking at what we're measuring, getting the feedback and going, we literally just saved years of our life because of a small stat in the back end that was there. If I just go to that little bit of extra effort to look at what the numbers are telling me, I can make really informed decisions and we can save time and money. I think
the psychology of that is, you added the line, the more subscribers, the bigger the guest, and that was the hook. So that was like the sexy bit.
So, a few things there, because you've all probably, when I said that, you probably thought, oh, cool, Steve, you should have been asking people to like and subscribe. No, if it sounds like wallpaper as a call to action, if everyone's heard it before, it does not work. You've heard the phrase like and subscribe, so wallpaper to your brain. The difference was it's 74%. It's such a specific number. You go, what? And then you go, 74% haven't subscribed. Reciprocity, here comes reciprocity. If you've ever enjoyed this podcast, could you do me a favor? Yeah. One of the key pillars of influence, people want to reciprocate, right? And then I go, and then there's another incentive coming. The bigger the show, the bigger the guests. This is going to help you as well. So when I'm looking at an investment, I'll basically invest in any business where you can convince me that you've established product market fit. So there's a customer there that loves what you're doing, and you know how to get more customers like that at a similar return on advertising spend. So that's really it. You could say to me, we've got 1,000 customers, they cost me £1 each to get. Steve, if you give me 50K, I know, because I've got the data here, that I'm gonna get 50,000 customers more. If you can prove that to me, there's a demand there and you know how to acquire that demand, that's it. That's honestly, I've sat on these calls with Deborah Meaden and I know what she's looking for and Peter, because we obviously have joint investments together. It's the same thing. It's proving that my cash is gonna pull a lever that's gonna make your business grow. Purely just proving that.
My envelope isn't gold, it's black and white. Can I hand it to you?
Of course you can. Of course you can. I love people that shoot their shot.
Have you actually, I want a picture of this, you've actually bought him an envelope?
Well, it's an envelope with my product, so it's
And-
So, sorry, for those at the back who can't see or hear what's going
Thank
on.
you. Oh,
can I-
it's called Bartlett blends. That's cool.
Perky blenders, I love that.
Oh, perky blenders.
I've got one for you as well.
Milk
Bless
chocolate.
your heart.
You know me well. The single most important thing is finding investors that are aligned to your vision and mission. Because honestly, when times will get tough, and what happens and no one tells you, is when times get tough in your business, the investor runs your business. When things are going well in your business, the CEO runs and the founder runs the business. And I've been there multiple times where things got so tough, we basically ran out of money, and I'm at the mercy of whatever the investors want to do because I need them to help me meet payroll. So you need people that are super aligned with you because times will get tough. And also, you're not just looking for money. You're looking for strategic support. So people that have walked those shoes before you, because as we said about guessing earlier on, a guess in a business can cost you years. So this is the role of mentorship, right? Like, it's finding people that have walked those shoes before to mitigate you from having to make the mistakes that you're inevitably going to make.
You do have to have a plan, but it has to be agile. But again, it comes from knowing sort of your objectives and goals for each quarter. And also just leaning into that. There is too much to do. You're never going to get it all done. There is a lot going on. But it's also what is going to bring you the greatest return to your business for the least amount of effort. Employing a really great team of people, working with great people. It's not just yours to carry. And if you are a sole founder, because I remember, I used to pack off every order, that I've come from that. And it is all on you and you haven't got anyone else. But what is going to bring you the greatest return to be able to take that next step? So it's kind of like, okay, cool. So this project is going to elevate the brand with these amount of people. It's going to tap into a new audience. It's a new innovation. It also ticks our North Star goals, as it were. So does this align with sustainability? Does this align with community building? And then it's also being smart with it, right? So, okay, cool. It's just me. So how do I have a bunch of people that love the brand, promote the message, and are walking, talking advocates for the brand? Wicked ambassador scheme. Then suddenly you've now got 30 little Yogi Bear cubs wandering around talking about your business on your behalf because you've created a brand, product, business that people love, and it all comes down to storytelling. So everything that you do, make sure that it still links to driving your story forward. And I think the more real we can all be, gathering in groups like this, and with the Vodafone platform, there's loads of sessions and meetups and stuff where people can be real with each other. And then you're not pitching yourself against, like you said earlier, imaginary lily pads. Imaginary people, imaginary stories. You're not building a business based off of falsehoods, also because you're looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to project their shiny best. The day I got the most real and let my guard down and started being really honest about the scrappiness, as it were, the day the best things started happening, because more and more people said me too, and real opportunities came up and you grew together. So, yeah.
Beautiful. How do you focus? How do you know on what to focus?
It's a funny, interesting question because I've really wondered about this for many years. The truth is there's a different answer based on what stage of the business you're at. Because for me, I have the luxury now of just leaning into the thing that I'm good at every day, which means I don't do finance, I don't do the website, I don't run my own schedule. I don't have to, I pretty much, because of the scale of my operation, I've gotten to the point where I can just do the bit that only I can do. And then everything else is delegated. But when I started, I remember the feeling. I remember looking down and thinking, I have to name this thing, I have to build the website, I have to find an investor, I have to find out how we're going to get the product, I have to do the marketing, and they all seem to be now. There doesn't seem to be a clear, and so there's a few things there. Like this is advice. Is like that is the answer. All of these things do need to happen as soon as you can. Psychologically, you have to understand one thing, which is everyone is in that position. Second thing is you can only do your best, and really embodying that. The thing is perseverance. Most of it is perseverance, really, in the end, because all the answers come from failure is feedback. Most of the answers just come from stumbling forward like a mess and being so driven by that, the why, that you're willing to just keep stumbling forward.
Andrew Stevens, you are the one who brought us here together today, so I'm going to hand over to you for final comments.
Well, listen, I want to say a big thank you, Steven and Kat, for your honest responses to the question and all the advice that you've given everyone here. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate your time and your answers. Steven mentioned Pulse Connect. It does aim to provide more flexibility and adaptability to small businesses and try and give you everything you need at a lower price, but with more flexibility, so you can cancel connections. We're the only ones who offer the ability to cancel connections with no termination charges at the moment, trying to help with the challenging marketplace that we're facing into. But thank you very much again to our guests.
Thank you. Good job.